For me, I just wake up and I dread my existence for a couple of minutes and then realize that I have to be a slave for capitalism for 8 hours a day. And then once that
When
dread
you
sets in, then I know I'm ready to work.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Marching Arts Podcast, your guide to all things marching. James, hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Um hello.
Hello?
All right, we get it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So, how are you? How are you this evening?
Pretty fine. It's got that stormy mood outside, so it's nice. It reminds me of band camp.
Hey
With all those
yo.
summer thunderstorms, at nighttime you would see, well, I guess I don't know, maybe this isn't for everyone, but down here in Georgia, at nighttime you got a lot of sky to sky lightning, so you don't actually hear anything, but you do see like the lightning happen up in the clouds at night, so it's
Yeah,
really
the heat
cool.
lightning.
Yeah, the heat lightning.
Heat lightning.
So just hearing the thunder and seeing it happen a little bit is reminiscent of those days at band camp. Speaking of which, that's
Speaking of
today's
which,
episode, band camp, and we know, I guess other places have already had band camp, and some places are in band camp, and other places haven't started band camp. So we thought, why don't we reminisce and talk about all things band camp? Um,
oh man, do you
so
do you remember your first band camp?
absolutely, of course, I remember our first band camp. Well, let's get started with this first then. What was the setup for your band camp like? Because I'm sure my setup was different than your setup.
Well, with regards to what? What do you mean by setup?
Did you have a pre-camp? Where did you have your pre-camp? And once you had
Oh,
your
oh,
pre-camp, did you have band camp? Where did you have your band camp? And after band camp, did you still have like summer practices at the school before school started? Blah 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 blah.
blah. Um, Okay, so for me, we had like a little mini pre-camp that was around like the end of May, beginning of June timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
That was mainly for incoming freshmen into the high school,
Mm-hmm.
just to try to see if people wanted to get ahead before a real band camp.
So was it optional except for freshmen?
I'm sorry?
Was that optional except for freshmen?
Oh, yeah, it was optional for anybody. So if
Oh, okay.
incoming freshmen couldn't do it or whatever,
Right.
then they didn't have to.
Okay.
And then we had a real pre camp before the actual camp, which was like a couple of days before the camp. So like if camp started on Monday, they would do the pre camp like Thursday, Friday of before then to
Okay.
teach everybody how to march those basics.
Yeah.
Basically,
Basics
2 days.
blocks.
Yeah, 2 days of basic block, and meeting your leadership team and directors and things like that.
Mm.
And then they hit the ground running on Monday. Did a week long. Um, this is high school. Did a week
Right.
long, and then we did 2 days a week.
Okay. And
In the
then
school into the school year.
was everything held at your school or around your school?
Yeah, we did everything on asphalt at the
Oh,
parking lot.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was hot.
Um, yeah, for people who don't know, we're in Georgia, so our summertime heats, which are much worse now than it is in the past. Facts, if you don't believe it, go read a book. But even back then, if it was in the 90s, which it usually was, asphalt is what 15 to 20 degrees hotter. So technically for y'all,
Yep.
that one must have been in the
It was like
110s.
110. Yeah.
Right. And so now
There was one day, and little known fact, when you get on turf, it's hotter.
oh yeah,
Um, so
because it just recycled
one
tires.
yeah. So we were my sophomore year of high school. So that was the first year that had turf. The first year
Mhm.
was grass. We were lucky enough to get turf, I should say.
Right.
But that second year, man, I remember being out there marching basics block and my shoes literally melting
Oh boy.
in on the turf. Like there was somebody that bought like brand new tennis shoes for marching band, not
Oh
like for
no.
because they wanted to like, not because they were trying to look at, they just wanted new shoes to use
Right.
for camp. Which by the way, if you're gonna get new shoes for camp,
Break them in.
buy them before camp.
Yeah.
Do
Go
not buy
walking in
them
them
the
for
day
at
before.
least like
Yes.
2 days.
So actually, the best way to break in shoes is to vacuum in them. So parents that hear this podcast that their kids interested in band, make
What did
them
you say?
buy them new shoes and make them vacuum. Because if you're
Vacuum?
vacuuming it, yeah, because you're constantly rocking back and forth in the shoes, and you're walking around and kind of pacing them. Yeah,
Now I want to
vacuuming.
see that. I want to see a meme of Harrison rocking back and forth with a vacuum cleaner.
We can do it next time I'm over at your place. We'll do it.
Okay.
We'll
But I
film.
mean, I guess I'll go over mine then. We had pre-band camp for 3 days, I believe, at our high school, and that was for everybody, I believe.
It was required.
Actually, it might have been just for new incoming people, so freshmen and, anybody who transferred in or just wanted
Right.
to join marching band after freshman year, which is usually quite a couple people because they see their friends do marching band freshman year and they're like, "Oh shoot, I should do that." But yeah, it would be like 3 days of basics block just for people to learn, and that was on grass. And then the next week we went to Rock Eagle for the first 3 years. Um, I guess that's south compared to Roswell. And then we stayed in like cabins and we marched on a grass field as well there. And then we did my last senior year, we did Reinhardt University, which was slightly closer and it was north, so it was cooler, which was nice. But I think Rock Eagle was just a nicer place to be at. Um, and then after a week of band camp, then we would come back and then do 3 times a week rehearsals for the last 2 or 3 weeks before school started.
Gotcha. And then you'd be like 2 days a week.
For during school or
Yeah.
we did Monday. No, we did Tuesday, Thursdays, and then Friday if there was a game day. No, wait,
Gotcha. No, because
yeah.
Friday you would have been at the game.
Well, I mean, you still had rehearsal from 4 to 5, and then 5 to 6 was dinner, and then 6 to 7 was get ready / warm up, and then 7 was game time.
No, no, I guess we did that too. Now that I think about it. Well then, so how did back in the day? How did you get ready for band camp? Like, how did you like
Um,
your first one versus like a returning one?
right. So I definitely didn't peak in high school, so we'll start off the bat with there. But I will say I was a lot more physically active when I was younger, so I didn't really have to ever
Oh,
get
same.
ready for band camp because I was always playing ultimate frisbee or hanging out and playing tennis. Just being outside a lot, doing a lot of yard work with my parents. So I was just acclimated to being outside and drinking lots of water. So
Drink lots of water.
yeah, all my shoes were broken in, all my clothes were broken in. I was used to
Plenty of
being,
vacuuming.
yeah, being hot and sticky and gross. So for me, I didn't really have to get ready for band. Oh, I guess the big part was music. I will say I was one of the worst people when it came to preparing for music. If
Hey, at
anything,
least you're honest.
right, if anything, maybe I would not obviously freshman year you don't have anything, but maybe I would pull out the instrument and play any fun stand tunes, just get my chops back. But if it was like etudes and like scales and like stuff like that, then I didn't care about that. Um,
See, I was the opposite. So at least on the music standpoint, like for
mhm,
me, I would be the kid that was playing all the scales and like etudes that I just had on hand
mhm,
to get my chops back, but I wouldn't play the stand tunes or like the marching
right.
show music, like a good student. So I would show up and I'd have all my chops, but I'd know none of the music.
Well, fair enough. For some people, you just need a different practice setup, regiment. There we go.
So what advice would you give to somebody incoming for their first ever band camp? What are like the top like 3 to 5 things you would tell somebody?
So I guess I'll preface this by saying, every high school has a feeder system of 3 or 4 middle schools. Well, I guess not every. I guess there are some rural places where it's just one, school, or maybe
Right.
it's just one school for the entire full,
For the county.
yeah, pre-K to
12.
12th. But since I was one of multiple feeder schools, we actually only had 2 people from our school join the marching band. Wait, 3. It was me, Will, and Xavier. So and obviously those two were brass. Will was trumpet, Xavier was the baritone slash euphonium.
Almost there.
So I literally knew no one. So I had to get real comfortable learning new people. And you know me, I'm an introvert, and usually I'm like not the person who goes out and seeks friendship. So I will say the leadership that was there, and since I was flute player, the flute players that were there were very, open to welcoming new people. Because I guess that's just a tradition of like it's band camp. Everybody's all the new people are nervous
Right.
to meet new people,
Got
and
that new band kid smell.
right. So I will say I probably did a lot better than people say from the other school because other school obviously they had like 20 to 30 of them on the other, so they all knew each other. So I did a lot better learning who the upperclassmen were, who the leadership were, and becoming not so much as like, oh, they're my leadership, and more so, hey, these are cool people. I can hang out with them when I want to.
So the
Um,
piece of advice would be is to get to know like your leadership team first,
yeah.
or
Or just branch out, meet new people because people who you're friends with in middle school may not be the friends who you are with in high school. And I mean, if you keep
absolutely.
them, great. But more often than not, your friends in high school will essentially replace your friends in middle school,
Yeah.
especially once you're in marching band. Um, so yeah, just don't be afraid to meet new people. Um, and then don't be honest about where your skills are, because again, some people. Where am I trying to go with this? I was never a very strong player my entire life until maybe like that senior year of high school. And once you get to college, you know that resets because everybody's
Right.
really good. So just be honest with everybody and say, these are the things I'm comfortable with. And then since they have all that experience, they'll say, this is how you get better, and take that to heart since they have literally run the gamut of which of what they did to get better. So how about
Gotcha.
yourself?
I think personally, the piece of advice that I would give would be if you've never done sports or if you've never done um, any sort of like team activity,
Mm,
um, band's a tough one. So my advice would be is make sure you stretch
yeah.
before band camp. Like take a month, like I'm talking like a month before band camp. You don't have to do like get extremely good at yoga or anything like that, but stretch. Take 10, 15 minutes in your morning and just stretch. Ankles, calves, thighs, and shoulders.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
like, I guess in middle school, we're all learning to get used to a completely different body. So, joining marching band will teach you a lot of things about your body that you didn't think that you had to think about. So, yeah, good point, Harrison.
yeah, for sure. The other one would be this is gonna be a soft spot for some people. Make sure you wear sunscreen.
It's not a soft spot for anybody at this point. Just wear your damn sunscreen.
So just wear it. You like you might be the people. Oh, I don't burn or whatever. That's the problem.
Yeah,
That's how you get skin cancer over time. You're not going to get it. Sure, you might make it through band camp, you'll get sunburned, and
nice
then get
tan. Yeah,
congratulations, you have a nice tan. But hey, you do that 8 years in a row,
right,
you could develop skin cancer. I mean, it just that's the reality. So wear
right.
sunscreen and stretch. Be prepared for a long day on your feet. It's gonna
Yeah,
and wear the right shoes. Right? Don't we talk about this with Dr. Meals? Wear the right dang shoes. Don't Please don't show up in Crocs as much as people like to say. Oh well, Crocs are fine. They're
no
not fine.
Crocs, no Chacos, no flip flops, no bare feet.
Uh,
Just,
wear tennis shoes.
yeah,
Embrace the sock tan.
embrace the sock tan.
Unless you don't wear socks. Some people in DCI don't wear socks.
And it's like a
Um,
tradition when you see people with that hideous sock tan, you're like, ooh, either they're a marching band or they play sports. Like there's no sports where they don't wear good supporting shoes and good supporting socks. So like just embrace,
unless they're in baseball, then baseball they either have the long pants or long socks,
right? And then they
so
just
they
have
may
tans
not have
on
the
their
sock.
face and that's it.
Yeah, they have the t-shirt tan and the sunglasses tan.
Right.
But that would be my advice, because that's what I did to get ready for band camp.
Mm,
I mean, I similar to you, I was outside a lot. I was a runner, so I was used to being on my feet, using my legs for a long period of time.
right.
Um, I need to get back into that now.
So I guess
um,
then now that we've delved a little bit into high school, maybe for somebody who's listening, well, I'm not in high school, but I want to march in college. What are the differences
oh
between high
yeah.
school and college marching band camps?
So that is a very good question because it's very different
Oh,
depending
absolutely.
on the college. So one thing I would say is be prepared to move fast, because college either goes one or two ways. Either you do like one show a month, so you do like three shows,
Hmm.
or because no, I don't think unless HBCU. I know some HBCU schools will do the same show all year long.
There are some like
Um,
college bands that try to emulate high school competition bands, so there are some schools that do just one show for a whole year.
but most of them
Right.
do multiple
Multiple
shows. And in the
shows.
case of like Kennesaw State, um, you know, we would have 1 week turnarounds where we'd
Right.
have learned the entire show in a week, music, drill, and all.
And it wasn't just like 10 sets of drill, it was still full 30 sets of drill. Where in, high
Right.
school, I think you would do maybe 40, 50, maybe for BOA it's a lot higher, but I know when I was in
Yeah.
high school, like our shows were maybe 50, 60 sets max, and in college it's basically the same thing. You just
Except you're
learn
doing multiple.
at much
Yeah.
faster rate.
So that would be my advice. Ready, since if you marched in high school and you're going into college, just be ready to move a lot faster. However, everyone that is there wants to be there.
Absolutely.
So you'll get a lot more camaraderie, you get a lot more people that want to work hard,
Hmm.
and it'll be much easier for you guys to get that stuff done as long as you pay attention. Now, if you're new to college marching band and you didn't do it in
High
high
school.
school and you're coming into college, hold on to your seat. Because not only is it a very physically tasking or physically, difficult task, um, it's also mentally straining because you have to memorize all of this stuff really quickly.
And it's
Um,
college, so a lot more responsibility is put onto you. You are responsible for your
correct,
life at that point, so you got to
correct,
juggle
and
all
you're
those things.
right, and like how in high school, in some places they'll take it like, all right, flutes are going to run these 2 sets. Okay, flutes did it. Okay, now clarinets are going to run this
Right.
section. Okay, right. But in college, they're like, you are responsible for getting it right.
Right.
So they're like, we're going to run this. Okay, you made some errors. Go back, fix
Right.
it, run it.
There's not
Cool.
a
All
much
right.
time spent on like learning techniques and learning how to count and, stuff like that. It's just like we expect you to know how to play this, and we're just here to balance out the band. Or like if like you're interpreting something wrong, let's run it back and reinterpret it. Obviously, if there's like some really hard stuff, then they'll like slow it down. But most of the time, it's just like you made the band, therefore you are good
You know
enough
what
to
you're
play.
doing.
Yeah, you know what you're doing.
So that would be another piece of advice. But overall, for both sides of it, whether you're new or not, I
Mm,
would say always, 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 if you have a question, ask your question.
right.
That is all the way across the board. If you are confused about something, you're not sure how to march it. Hey, am I hitting my spot right? I need help. Raise your hand, ask for help. Because,
Especially in
yeah,
basics block. I know a lot of
correct.
people mess up in basics block because either they didn't hear because you have a really big band and like maybe the metronome or the megaphone isn't turned up all the way, and then we have to waste 30 seconds resetting to rerun basics block. So,
Yep.
um,
If you've got a question, throw that hand way high in the air. Use your instrument to help you if you need to.
yeah.
Um, get somebody's attention. Ask away. Do not hold your questions.
And like band is a mentally taxing thing because you got to remember, like maybe during basics block there will be like, all right, these are the 8 sets of moves for 8 counts each, and so you have to memorize 8 sets of moves. So, when you're mentally exhausted and just you sometimes just forget things, just ask.
Yep. And stay engaged. Um, That's gonna be the last thing at like the college level is stay engaged. Just because you know what you're doing and you know how to do it well,
Right.
don't disengage. Don't be like, well, I know what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna go on
Mm,
autopilot. Stay engaged because they mean it when you say you're gonna perform how you practice.
yeah.
Um, and so practice well.
Did at
It's not gonna be perfect.
did at Georgia State, did you all practice on asphalt or grass?
Oh, we shared the football facility, so we practiced on turf outside.
Okay, because I know in high school I did grass, and then change at Kennesaw was asphalt. And there's advantages, disadvantages to both. But if you're a new marcher, definitely just get used to both surfaces. Because if you show up and you were getting ready, just being outside on like grass, and then you find out all your practices are going to be in asphalt, again, that's a 20, 30 degree difference, even if it's the same
Correct.
temperature on the same day. So just get
Correct.
used to both surfaces. Even if it's like going 5 minutes, go out to Target, stand in the baking heat, and then just realizing, oh, this is what it's gonna be like. Just do that.
Yep. Yeah. It's tough, man. If you haven't been out in that heat before, and now
Right.
you are for like 12 hours,
And it's
it's
only getting
it's
hotter
tough.
every year, so
It's only getting hotter for sure. It's also getting hotter. It's also getting colder.
yeah.
So maybe there'll be a change where band will shift to be like a winter sport, and it'll just be pet bands at football games.
I was about to say up north, I think they would rather die than have even colder seasons. I'm sure they need to apply like rubbing alcohol or like oil on their instruments so their faces don't freeze into the
Freeze.
instruments. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad told me when back in the day when he marched trombone, he marched in the inauguration for Jimmy Carter.
Oh, okay.
Um, it was pretty cool. It's pretty awesome.
Right.
Um,
That's in January,
but
right?
but it was the coldest part of the year in Washington D.C. and there was like 2 feet of snow on the ground.
Nice.
It was the coldest inauguration historically. um, and he said that he remembered the staff was like running up and down the band, like yelling at people to make sure anytime they were not playing
Mm,
that you had to be blowing air on your instrument,
right.
otherwise your face would freeze to your
Right.
instrument.
Um,
um, what? So we talked, getting into band camp and how to get ready for it.
mm.
But I mean, and there's a lot of things. Everyone has heard the phrase. You remember the one time at band camp?
Yeah, funny thing
Um,
is I've never seen, like, I knew the meme, but I had never watched like that whole segment of American Pie. So like last night I watched it on YouTube and I'm like, Jesus Christ, she says that one time at band camp so many times in that
so many
movie.
times, so many times. Um, but really though, that one time at band camp, what was your favorite memory from any of your band camps, whether it be your freshman one or onward into college? I'd say let's do a favorite memory from your high school band camps and your college band camps.
Okay. Favorite memory from high school. It's just like there's so many. Well, at least I guess I'm privileged to say I enjoyed my band camps every single year I went. Just the maybe the pool parties or the poker nights that we would have after, just to hang
You guys
out
did
with.
poker nights?
Yeah. Because
How
we
did
had
how did that work?
chaperones, so we had chaperones and everything, and then the chaperones would at nighttime just sit around and play poker, and so they would let some of the students play with them. Obviously, there was no money on the line or anything, but it was just a way to get to know people and just like having that experience of learning and just shooting the stuff with adults and like learning how adults think and stuff like that. I think was really cool. And then just like having a giant party with, and again, I'm privileged to say that our band was like 120 people. So just having a pool party with that many people is so much fun. So, just hanging out with everybody at the same time and all of us having fun at the same time, I think were my favorite memories in high school. And then in college, it was, band camp. For me, it was always trying to maximize our free time as much as possible. So like I know as band kids we're always taught always be early to everything, always be early to everything. But when your band camp days are like 8 hours a day and you have like a rest block for 1 hour, you want to use your whole resting time for that full hour. So a lot of times for lunch, we would go out and then we would get back on our like basics block spot like at minute 59 with like 13 seconds to spare.
I can attest to that. When we, so the old way Kennesaw did their auditions for the band, they would do it at camp.
Right.
So you would show up, and you would do a marching audition and a music audition. And the leadership team were responsible for judging the leadership auditions. Now, when I became drum major, me and the director revisited that topic, and I convinced her to do auditions before camp, and they've done that ever since.
Oh, okay.
So, but, um, but in those times where there were auditions, you would do your audition, and then there was like 3 hours you weren't doing
Oh,
anything. But
I
camp was
remember that.
like 12 hours.
Right.
And we would um, when I got to Kennesaw, we would leave and go to Stone Summit and go rock climbing, and then come back with like an hour to spare, and we'd have our hammocks set up all over the
Right.
place, and we would just take a nap.
Yeah.
And then like you said, 11, like whatever the time, 59 would be in the spot and horn up. This should be like,
What was that?
start waking up. So, huh? Um, Again, back to the whole always be engaged thing.
Yeah.
Um, but high school for me, my favorite memory. Oh man, I think I have to go similar. For me, we did like a block party thing.
Mm.
Where we would have like inflatables and stuff out on the field, and we did like a family show at the end. So we would basically do like a little pre-show of what we learned at camp,
Mm.
and then we would have like this like block party. I mean, we would be playing soccer and football, and we had a track around our football field, so people would be racing, and then we had like water slides and all this,
Oh, that's
and
fun.
then people were racing onto the water slides and then
Oh,
sliding off
nice.
the back of them. That was probably my favorite memory from band camps.
Mm.
Um, except my senior year of high school. So my senior year of high school, we did a Les Mis show, and I got to be one of the main characters.
Oh, nice.
Um, and I was the master of the house. So if you've ever
Oh,
seen
yeah.
the Les Mis, is the drunken guy,
Right.
trying to convince people to give them their, or like stealing money from them.
Right.
Welcome is yours at your butt down. um, and I had to act drunk on a football field. So that was really fun. And at band camp, we brought that up, and I had a bass trombone solo because I marched bass trombone my senior year.
Oh, okay.
Um, Specifically for the Les Mis show, they wanted
Mm.
me to play because I was the bass trombone player for just wind symphony. So,
Right.
um, and and so it's 90, 6 degrees outside, so the asphalt's 120 degrees, and I'm over here falling over on the ground. And although I was roasting alive on the pavement, I had a really fun time because I got to fall over in a banjo on purpose.
Nice.
um, so those are my favorite band memories. On top of meeting all the new people and seeing new faces and making new friends.
Right.
But on the flip side,
Yeah.
we have to talk about it. What's your least favorite memory of band camp?
Yeah, so my least favorite, I didn't really have any non-favorite parts of college. I think everybody wants to be there, so like we're all in it together, and whereas
Mm.
high school, it's like the people that really don't want to be there can really suck the soul out of the whole place.
Mm,
And so like trying to get that buy-in from them, especially when they're like, my parents are making me be here, can be really hard. Especially when maybe they don't know anybody there. So that's like the double whammy. But in high school, we got a new band director in my junior year, and the program had been in shambles. Well, not in shambles, but he wanted to take it back up to that next level, back to where it had been prior. And
right.
so he intentionally chose really hard. Oh, I wouldn't even say hard. he chose a challenging show that prior years the program would have been able to do just fine. But because of how the program was slid a little bit, it was definitely a challenge for a lot of people there. So we had we were supposed to learn 20 sets of drill at band camp. And then learn another 20 before school started, and then learn another 20, during the first few weeks of school.
Right.
Um, and so every day we should be learning 5 sets of drill, essentially. And then, but that's like learning, cleaning, memorizing, stuff like that. Um, and so like the first day went fine. We learned the 5 sets of drill just fine. The second day, it was like 101, 103 or something. And it was humid, and it was a lot of curves instead of lines for the show.
Mm.
Um, and
Curves are
so
hard.
yeah, especially for high schoolers. We ended up learning. Oh, and we had changed our drill system from charts to dots, so people had to learn that whole thing as well because they couldn't see a picture of the form.
Right.
They just had to just trust that the dot or the
That
coordinate
the
that was
dot was
listed
right.
on right. And so we learned 2 sets of drills over, I want to say like 6 or 7 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a lot of just people looking at their sheet, being completely brain dead, essentially, trying to figure out where the spot was, or maybe they learned the spot and then the band director would help some lost people, but that would take like 15, 20 minutes. So by the time we reset, other people had forgotten their spot. So then they
And
marched to the wrong spot.
meanwhile, you're all melting in the sun.
Yeah, we're all melting in the sun. We still, got our water breaks every 20 to 30 minutes, but we're still melting in the sun. And so that basis, or not basis block, but that morning rehearsal from like 10 to 1, we would learn like 2 sets of drill. And then that evening when we got back on the field from like 6 to 9 or something, or maybe 6 to 8, something like that, we just reverted those 2 sets of drill. And I remember that was probably the most miserable all of us had been together. Even the band director was like, "Man, this is miserable." But like, I think it helped everybody grow stronger because we're like, okay, these are the standards we need to set and get back to, so we can consistently be, the band program that we used to be. But what about you?
That's a tough one. That's a
Yeah,
tough one, man. Yeah, top that. Mine was Goofy. My least favorite memory band camp was my junior year of high school. We were in basics block. It's first thing in the morning. Um, I didn't. I either forgot my phone or something in the band room, so I didn't have my phone on me.
well, I thought
And
you said bone at first. I'm like, oh wow, he really forgot his trombone.
no, not that bad. I did forget my trombone once at home, like I forgot it, didn't bring it to school. Because I was used to it being at school or whatever, and I took it home to practice
Random
for all state.
tangent, but if you watch DCI, the DCI season is happening, but there was a color guard member in one of the Western cores. It might have been Blue Devils, but I want to say it probably wasn't Blue Devils. But they just didn't have any of their equipment for the entire show. So it was really weird seeing them like do the
Oh, who
fake
was that?
flag tosses and like the fake
And no
rifle
flag.
tosses, and so they would like pretend to catch stuff and still do all the like the dance stuff. But it was so weird just seeing in a real life competition somebody just didn't have any of their equipment.
Mm. Yeah, I left it on the bus or something.
Maybe, yeah. So you left your phone.
Yeah, so I left my phone, and this is important. That detail's important. So it's 95 degrees outside. We're on tarmac,
Mm-hmm.
and we're marching basic blocks, standing around, teaching people how to march. Agonizingly melting in the sun. Um, and I remember I was standing on in between lines, so it was on the 4 step um, dot. So I was on the black part of the black top,
Right.
and I was wearing, and I had my shoes had black bottoms. Um, and I was just standing there for a while. I was waiting,
Mm.
and had my feet together, standing in my spot. Um, and we went to go march again. And so, I was like, "Oh, cool, we're all moving again. Get set, horn up, right?" And I go take my first step, and the entirety of the bottom of my right shoe. Hold on, right shoe. No, my left shoe. I'm sorry, step offs of my left shoe stayed in on the ground.
Mm,
So the entire rubber part of my shoe came like as if you see in a cartoon where they grab the shoe and shove their foot through it.
right.
It's exactly that. Whereas like my sock was touching the ground.
Jesus.
And I didn't have my phone, so I couldn't tell my mom that
Right.
I
I
needed
need new
new shoes.
shoes.
Um, Eventually I did. I got the new shoes. But it was oh man, so that was my worst there because then I was outside and I wasn't confident enough to be like my shoe just broke.
Right.
So I like suffered
Oh,
with it
jeez.
for like 2 or 3 more sets.
And with like
And then
asphalt, it's like hard to like find any way to cool it down so that doesn't happen. Because like if you spray it with water, it's just gonna absorb the water, and then it's just gonna be really humid and disgusting. So you don't want to do
right.
that. It's just like, what do you do to protect shoes?
Yeah. And then uh, with that, it was like, and then another year, same kind of thing happened,
Mm.
except I didn't totally lose it, but I was marching, and then like the front half of my shoe was like clapping with
Oh
the
boy,
top, so it's just so it would be like step, clap, step, clap, step, clap.
that must have been
It
fun
was
after
funny.
a while.
It was pretty funny, mainly because my foot wasn't melting.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I had my mom bring me um, shoes, and she listens to this podcast, so she's probably cackling listening to
Right.
this. So, hi mom.
Mom,
Yeah,
can
hi
you bring
mom.
me my shoes?
um, so in your band camps, did you guys do have any like wacky traditions, or like did you guys have like in section competitions or anything?
Yeah, so I guess I'm gonna break the cardinal rule, but I'm gonna talk about it. Every band camp we always had like mock fight club. No actual fighting or anything, but we would always make everybody learn the rules to Fight Club. And so like
Right,
after the first night, nobody could really talk about it, but we would just like passingly reference it and stuff like that, and everybody had to know the rules. And I think even one year somebody had written all the rules on one of the cabin doors. So I think they got into pretty big trouble for that. But I think once they got off the wall, it was or the door, it was fine. But just all the amount of Fight Club references at Bandcamp every year was pretty cool. Um, and then at the end of Bandcamp, all the grades would be separated, and everybody had to sort of come up with their own basics block. And obviously the freshmen would just try to do the basic block itself. The 8 sets of forward, backwards, left, right. Make a square, and then you're done. Whereas,
right,
the juniors and seniors would try to one up each other, trying to make really cool drill and stuff like that. Um, and then my favorite competition slash tradition was that we would all have a giant basic block, and then the band director, or yeah, the band director would have, the gawk, and then he would just call out random, you know, call outs, step outs, and then you do that for eight, 8 clicks, and then he would do another call out, stuff like that. And so if you screwed up, you had to drop out of the block.
right,
And then, as more people dropped out and the block got smaller, he would just hit the Glock a little bit faster. And then he would give us, maybe instead of 4 counts, he would give us 2 counts of like left march left or whatever. And then, I was in that senior or junior year, we got it down to like 5 people, and I was still in it, still going.
Ayo.
And then he called out, he would just start calling out really crazy stuff because he was like, how the heck am I going to get these people out? And so that was always a lot of fun, just seeing like how well you could listen to the band director while also starting to march at like 180, 190,
Right,
while still
right,
trying to maintain proper form. Um, and then this wasn't necessarily part of like band camp, but whenever our first practice was on at the stadium, so we got to march on like the official field,
right,
um, we would all line up on like the end zone, and then we would keep our toes up the entire time, and then just do like little baby steps from end zone to end zone. And then the kicker was that we couldn't pass the band director. So the band director would be hitting the Glock, but he'd also be in front of the entire line. And then we just could never pass him. So that was a really cool, fun thing to do.
Oh, so he would get like smaller and smaller
Yeah,
steps
really
and things.
like little baby steps.
Like we're talking like 16 to 5, 32 to 5.
32 to 64s. Sometimes you would feel like you weren't moving at all. And then the challenge, of course, was that like there'd be staff on both ends of the line just being like, "Some this person's out of line, this person's out of line," and we couldn't like move forward until everybody was like perfectly lined up and stuff like that.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, those were my favorite traditions slash competitions. How about yourself?
Um, mine's gross. So low brass. Um, we had a tuba room, right?
Mm,
I think a lot of places have a tuba
right.
room. And the low brass kind of that was the meeting room. And we would kind of go through what we were gonna do, whatever. But at the beginning of band camp, first day of like normal camp, not pre camp, um, all the low brass would gather in the tuba room, so it was real cramped. Um, but everyone was required to bring two sandwiches.
Okay.
One sandwich is for eating. The other one was to go in this little cooler. Everyone put a sandwich in this cooler.
Oh yeah.
That cooler got sealed and
Oh no.
stayed in the tuba room through the entirety of the marching season.
Oh Jesus.
And then we would and you'd write your name on the bag so you know which one, and you would pull it out at the end of the season. Would rank,
Yeah.
but we would play and see which sandwich was the worst.
Oh.
Like, look, so you can go where you can tell where I'm going with this. So freshmen typically would bring in like a ham sandwich or like whatever, but juniors and seniors were bringing like tuna and like old like already mashed up stuff
Right.
and put it in this bread and calling it a sandwich. um, and that was really fun. Except on the day we opened it, I'm trying to remember how we decided who opened it at the
Oh
end of the
Jesus
season.
Christ.
I can't remember who we decided to open it. I never had to open it. But I didn't need to.
Right.
um, Another one that I liked was similar to the kind of competition that you did, where you did individuals doing the marching
Mm.
commands, except we did it in full lines. So we had full lines, and they would give us a set drill, and they gave us like 10 minutes to figure it out,
Oh, okay.
and then to get everybody on the same page, like call outs and everything
Right.
like that on the same page, and then you would compete on a line basis.
Yeah, okay.
Um, and if and Yeah, basically the one who did it in the least amount of reps was the winner.
Nice.
Um, um, and my senior year, we had all the trombones were in the same line, and we had a really strong relationship that year. Because we didn't really have any freshmen, and all the seniors had been there for 4 years, so it was like we
Mm.
knew each other really well. So we did it first shot. Didn't even take to 10 minutes.
Nice.
We got the sheet. Everybody knew the assignment. We're like, all right, we're hopping on the line, and they started the clock, and we just went. It took us about 30 seconds. We did the first shot. It was
Nice.
pretty cool. And we're like, all right, cool. We're gonna go sit down. So that was my favorite tradition on that end for competitions and things. Um, man, there's a lot of crazy stuff about band camp. What's okay? There's crazy things people hear about band camp, about what happens at band camp,
Right.
and these weird
Thanks, American Pie.
stereotypes. Yeah, right. And stereotypes. Are they real? Let's be real. Are they real?
Yes and no. People will give you really weird looks when you talk about your time at band camp, and obviously when you're like, "Oh, this thing happened at band camp," and they'll give the stereotypical, "Oh, that one time
The
at
one
band
time at
camp."
band camp.
But yeah, you will get a lot of inside jokes, a lot of weird stories that make sense to you, but make absolutely no sense to other people. Um,
And it
you're just
bleeds out.
right, yeah, it just bleeds out. So like you will get a lot of weird looks and just when you tell stories to other people that didn't go to band camp. Um, I guess when we're talking about, there's tons of teenagers exploring, they're hitting their past puberty, so lots of relationships happen. But I don't think I
Right.
ever heard of anything adulterous happening at our band camps. Because I don't think there's a lot of time to, and like the high school chaperones are pretty much watching always, anyways.
Well, I think it depends because I think you may not have heard it, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
That's true. Um,
Because on that kind of a thing, we're adults now. We can talk about this.
right.
It will find a way.
Yes. I will say it probably happens a lot more in college because you do get those extra
That I
rest
believe.
times, and then
That I believe.
you meet a ton of new people, and college is perfect time for those maybe not one night
Hormones are
stands,
raging
but
again.
right. College is just a different animal when it comes to
Yeah,
meeting new people and becoming intimate with them.
yeah. So, but I agree. I think that a lot of the stereotypes are probably true,
Right.
but
Not to the
uh,
extent of craziness.
right.
Everything is confirmation bias. So sure, it might happen, but it's not happening nearly as often as people think.
Yeah. Um, Now let's not beat around the bush, man. Band kids are still odd.
Oh, absolutely.
We are odd people. Um, However, we are um, a very tight knit group of people,
And very dedicated.
um, and very dedicated. So if you're looking for somebody to be a friend with, a band person, sure they might be a little odd, but they will probably be a very good friend to you.
Right. And like
Um,
when they've suffered through Bandcamp just as much as you can probably depend on them to be accountable for things.
yeah, most of the time.
Right.
Um, but as far as stereotypes go, I mean, I think it depends. Radical ones, I wouldn't agree that are probably accurate, but
Right.
general ones, they're probably accurate.
Right. I guess we haven't touched on the topic of hazing, but at our
Yeah,
band camp there really wasn't hazing. If anything, it might have been like, oh, you can't go to sleep until you beat us in like Smash or something, or like we're making you watch the entirety of Fight Club even if it's already like 11 o'clock. But I mean, there was no like we're gonna beat you up or everybody gets to hit you so many times since you're a freshman. So
right.
and if like it was like you had to watch Fight Club until 1 a.m. in the morning, like everybody was doing it. It wasn't just like we're locking you in a room.
By
Like everybody,
yourself.
yeah, everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
Or so
I think and I think you and I were both fortunate enough that we didn't have to deal with that.
right.
Um, because I could say that it didn't happen for me as well for
Mm,
hazing, but let's be real, there's probably programs out there doing that
absolutely.
behind closed doors and things like that.
And
So,
even though it's getting
we
better, people still definitely need to call it out until it's 100% eradicated. And
absolutely do not be afraid. If you see something, say something. I
right,
mean, it starts with you. If you notice that happening, or someone says something to you, say something. Like, the hazing's not okay. It's not cool.
right. And
Um, and
that
that's not what
one
band's about.
yeah, and that one event can end up ruining that whole season slash even your whole thoughts of marching band for your entire life. So just be
Right.
cognizant of that. Just like don't be like, well, it's just a one time thing. That one time thing can color your whole opinion on your
Correct.
experience for the rest of the time.
Right. And that goes across the board. That's not just for high school. That's BOA, centered bands. That's DCI, WGI,
Right.
indoor, whatever kind of marching art program you're in.
Mm,
If you see something like that, say something.
right.
If it's not appropriate, it's not appropriate. Say something. So, um,
And in this climate, it's
and
like there, if you find resistance from somebody, I guarantee you, not everybody thinks the same way as that one person who might tell you, "Oh, it's not a problem." There
go to
will
someone
always
else.
be, someone else that you can talk to.
Correct. Because hazing is not okay. And again, also, no means no.
Yeah.
Like, no means no means no
No.
means no. um, so I don't want to spend all of our time talking about that,
Right.
but that's a big deal. So, um, what are some things, and we'll just quickly just kind of jump out of that one before we get way too far into the rabbit hole. What are some things that nobody told you about band that you wish they did?
Uh,
For me, it was
chops.
nobody told me it was going to be 5,000 degrees outside on my feet.
Yeah. Chops.
Chops.
You play a lot in marching band, And even like from going to middle school to high school, you are literally paying maybe 1 hour a day a week to, I would say, maybe 2 to 3 hours a day a week.
Well, and then on
Especially
top of
with
that, if
marching
you're
band.
doing ensemble,
Right. So you definitely need to spend time on getting chops. And chops are something that come and go. So if you don't practice, your chops are going to go away. So even if you despise playing, etudes and scales like me, just pull out some show music or pull out some stand tunes or even concert music just so you get used to making your faces in silly shapes so that your chops are ready to
yeah,
go and you're not like buzzing your lips out every 25 seconds, 1 hour into practice when you know you have 3 or 4 hours to go.
yeah, for
Um,
real.
what about you?
Things nobody told me. The Heat, that was number one.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Mainly because I didn't have an older sibling that was in band.
Mm,
So I just found it out. So, um, man, things nobody told me. Nobody told me band camp was long. Band
yeah.
camp's long. Some band camps are 2 weeks long.
Yeah.
Um, that was what it was when we were in college because it was you had that first week that was kind of audition week, and then you
Mm,
had that second week which was actually learning everything.
mm.
Um, and then nobody told me.
Well, I have a wholesome one. Nobody told me that I would be making lifelong friends along the way,
Oh,
and that obviously you're not going to be friends with everybody in the band for the rest of your life, but you will find those core group of people, I think, that will share the same values and ideals with you. And even though obviously you grow, but you still have that common bond of going through the seven levels of band camp that you
yeah.
can reminisce with
I
those
mean,
people.
I can, I can speak to that. I'm married to somebody I met in band. So
That one time at band camp.
that one time at band camp. And you also met Sydney in band too, right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So band brings people together.
yeah.
That is a wholesome one. Thanks, James.
I'll cut it out just to make sure
Cut
nobody
it
can
out.
know I'm wholesome.
Hey, yeah, you got to save your identity, dude.
Right.
um, Nobody told me how sore I was gonna be. I guess mine are mostly physical. Um, but man, I remember going home freshman year, first day of bank, going home and just not wanting to move,
Hmm. Yeah.
and then having to get up early and go back again.
I will
And I
say
was like,
though, it also sort of kind of makes you addicted to band. When you get
yeah,
home, you're like, wow, even though I didn't physically enjoy it, now that's all I can think about mentally. And you're almost like, I sort
I
of
gotta
want to
do it
go
again.
back to, yeah, I gotta go back
Yeah,
and go to practice. And like, I want to do
yeah,
that. So you'd be
yeah. But
surprised.
that's really it
Yeah.
for me. I think I had a pretty decent grasp
Hmm.
on marching band when I got into it. Um, so
I guess another
um,
thing is things nobody tells you about is basics block. That is something that will
yeah,
never go away, and no matter how much
no,
you dislike it, it's always going to be stay.
you need it. It's important. You need
Right,
it. But all things considered, everything we talked about with Bandcamp,
right.
the good, the bad, the fun, the nostalgic, um, you know, all of those things together, do you think you could accurately paint the picture of your entire season through Bandcamp?
Oh, baby. Let's see. My
I
band.
think
Yeah, go first.
I think you can.
Okay.
Because if it starts off rough and no and you get a bad start, people aren't, working well together. You have like a whole bunch of drama right at the beginning of the season, all these things. I feel like that ties you down and kind of weighs you down as you get started, which then slows other things down, and then you kind of like, spiral out of control through the season. So I think Bandcamp kind of sets the tone for the whole season.
I halfway agree with you. I think if like the leadership group doesn't click, then yes, that's just going to be an unmitigated disaster for the entire season. Um,
So you
and
think it
then
happens more at a like a director and leadership level rather
not
than
so
just
much
everyone
director
together?
level, but like student leadership level. And
Hmm.
obviously there are groups that are start out great at band camp, but then like something happens at maybe one show, and then the leadership group kind of like fractures, and that never gets fixed. But I will say if your show is not to snuff of where you want it, or you didn't learn enough sets, like that happened my junior year, and so you feel like you're playing catch up the whole year, but you have a really strong leadership team, you can turn your season around. And sure, your first competition may not go that great like ours did. But our what matters is what you have at the final competition, and so we ended up placing like fourth, and getting superiors across the board.
Heyo.
So as long as you have that strong emotional and support foundation, I think a bad start at band camp is overcomable. But if you just have a toxic leadership group or a toxic attitude that or atmosphere, it's very hard. It's much harder to fix that than say like a show that maybe needs a lot of love and work.
Right. But I think, to me though, I really do think it can make or break a season. Um, because if it starts off poorly, I think it won't. But to your point, if the leadership team's there, if the right people are there, you could probably bring it back. But just my
Mm.
experience, I just think if you start bad, it's going to continue to go bad unless something drastic changes it.
Right. And maybe my experience is different with you because you had a BOA. Well, I guess, it was only your last year, but I could see how with BOA being much more competitive, and you probably learn a ton more sets and have a lot more challenging music. And you are literally competing with hundreds of other bands nationally. So I can see how it's just much more tougher. Whereas us, it was like, we only compete with the people that show up at competition. So yeah, I can see how maybe depending on what level of excellence you're going for could really depend, or what level of excellence that you're going for could really depend on how your band camp starts and ends.
Moral of the story: just be ready for band camp
Yeah.
because band camp is everything.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, band camp might feel like the beginning of the season, but you also have to remember the staff have been working on the whole show, the
Yep.
music,
The
recruiting,
timeline.
the timeline, the competitions, who's in leadership from like January
Who's
1st, essentially. The
who's going to
budget,
be?
right?
Yep. Who's going to be in what room during band camp for how long?
Right.
All of
So
those decisions they have to make.
yeah, you definitely have to respect staff. And it's not as if they've just like, yeah, Bandcamp is saying we'll just figure it out as we go. And like, no, they put their heart and souls into making sure that the experience is worth their time and your time. So
Yeah, because their whole job is they have to set you up for success.
yeah, I think we've covered everything we want to talk about Bandcamp. Thanks so much for joining me, Harrison, today as we reminisced about our
Yeah, I
not
love.
totally not a glory days, right?
We you said we didn't peak earlier, but um, yeah, band camp's great. It's where everybody starts with marching band. It's the birthplace of marching band.
Yeah, and it gets us
Um,
excited because we know the busy season is about to start, and we'll have a lot more content to talk about on our podcast.
I know. So stay tuned.
Yeah. So this has been the Marching Arts Podcast. You can find us anywhere on social media. We also have a YouTube channel, so if you're on Spotify, go ahead and check us out on YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces. And likewise, if you're on YouTube and you don't have YouTube Premium and you want to listen to the podcast without having to have the video open, go check us out on Spotify. But again, this has been the Marching Arts Podcast, your guide to all things marching.